Ya te pas
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Cámara Peruana de Comercio Exterior, and we welcome you to our morning lectures. I hope everyone is fine. Today is Saturday, December 5th. I hope everyone is safe at home, as, as well as their families. And if you need to go out, remember that even though they have permitted now, they have given um, more permissions for people to go out and go to malls and things like that. I know we all need to stress out sometimes, we all need to move, but just be careful. Do it in a safely manner, and when you return home, wash your hands, clean your shoes. You know that there are still people at home who would not like to get sick, so let's just be careful. Okay. Again, welcome to our daily lectures. Today we're going to continue with the topic of linking words and their importance on making arguments. You know, like I mentioned, and I have many times, it is not only important to be able to say what you want to say, but also to sustain and give arguments and reasons why you say what you say. Okay, so let's begin. The name of the topic today is developing an argument, linking words number two. I'm going to give you more today I'm going to give you more templates of expressions that you can use and specifically when to use them. Um, Examples of moments and situations where you can use these words. Okay. Um, if you have any questions, you can ask me through Zoom or you can ask me via Facebook chat. You know that I follow both. I follow your questions both in Facebook chat and also in um, Zoom. Okay, so if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me, and I will try to answer as quickly as possible. Remember that in Facebook chat, normally the questions arrive with sometimes with a little bit of a delay, so I will try to answer them as quickly as possible. Okay, but again, don't hesitate to do so. My name is Carlos Martinez. I am an English instructor and speaking coach. I am a former team leader from Pacifico University's Language Center, and currently I am an EFL teacher at Mater Purísima School in Miraflores. Okay, I'm glad to welcome all of you to our English um, our English classes. So first of all, even though I mentioned it the last time, I'm going to mention it again. What is a linker? A linker, also called sometimes transitions or discourse markers. They help us establish our ideas explicitly, and linkers make it easy for us to compare, contrast, illustrate, define, summarize our thoughts, and develop coherent paragraphs. Okay, so basically, they organize what we say, whether it's written or spoken. Linkers prepare the listener or the reader to what we are going to say. It allows us to express two ideas and without literally saying that, for example, they are different. If I say but, immediately you know that these two ideas are opposite. If I say and, immediately you know that these two ideas are equal. If I say, for example, although, again, it's like but. If I start saying firstly, then I know that you're going to tell me secondly and thirdly and maybe finally. Okay, so it helps us organize our ideas, it helps us summarize our ideas, it helps us define or compare or contrast what we want to say. Okay, so linkers have an important role in the way we communicate and the way our message or our messages are received, whether it is spoken or written. And remember also that whether or not it is formal speaking or informal speaking, whether it's a presentation, whether it's an email, um, its use is relevant. Okay, it totally improves the way we communicate. Now, if you, the question, what are linkers? Linkers are words that relate one idea or sentence with the text with another. They connect the ideas logically. They give direction to the writer or the speaker. Like I said, normally linkers are more commonly used during written English, but they are used in spoken English, especially during presentations and discourses and, and meetings. They also use to guide the reader or the speaker through his thoughts. They make the meaning more specific. And which linker to choose, okay? Because again, I'm going to give you some templates of linkers that we can use in English. But when do we use each one and why do we use each one? There's always a reason. It's not only because I want to use however, and I just use it. There is a position of the word however, and there's a moment when to use however. I just want to use in contrast. Again, there is a moment when to use in contrast, and there's a position where in contrast is going to be used. Meaning is the first and most important criterion in choosing a linker. Okay, why are you using this word? What do you want it for? The second is the logical relation that needs to be made directly clear. Like I said, first is the meaning. I mean, what does it mean? And second is, I mean, is it logical? For example, if I say Lima is big, Lima is beautiful, both are both are positive things, and it will be illogical to say but Lima is big but it is beautiful. It makes no logic. Okay, so first the meaning of what I mean, to make contrast, to make comparison, and then if it's logical, definitely, okay, it needs to make sense. For example, linkers like because, so, and therefore express logical relations which are different from those exposed by although, but, and nevertheless. Okay, exactly what I just said, right? If because is used for reason. I study English because I want to travel. I'm telling you why I'm doing something. But um, I would like to travel, but I don't have enough money. So now I'm giving you an opposite idea. Okay, so these words have a reason when to use them, and again, they need to be logical. Okay, so like I said, today's class is going to be basically a vocabulary class of what linkers to use and in what situations. For example, here we have a chart, and we have linkers for cause and effect. We have linkers for comparison, and we have linkers for to contrast. When we say contrast, it literally means to give opposite ideas or to talk about something opposite or different, right? To make contrast, to make differences. So linkers of cause and effect, for example, we have because, so, accordingly, thus, consequently, hence, therefore, as. Okay, all of these words introduce a reason and show a result. Okay, so notice how all these words have this is the broad meaning. Of course, we can use them. The, here comes the logical idea, right? Um, if we say consequently, basically it's a consequence. If we say because, it's it's a reason. Okay, so all of these have to do with cause and effect. Okay, now which one you want to use? It totally depends now on the logic of of your sentence. Okay, so all of these introduce a reason and show a result. For example, we had to wait because it was raining. Okay, um, or for example, it was a cold day, therefore I had to wear a jacket. Okay, or tomorrow I have an important exam, hence I need to sleep early. Okay, so these are for cause and effect. Okay, and again, they introduce a reason they show a result. Then we have comparisons, linkers for comparison. Here we have similarly, likewise, whereas, but, On the other hand, except by comparison when compared to, equally, in the same way. Okay, all of these again identify similarities between two ideas. Okay, not necessarily exact similarities, but I mean there's something they have some connection. Okay, for example, life is difficult in extreme poles. Similarly, it is horrible near the equatorial regions. Okay, so I'm telling you that um, the relationship between living in extreme areas of the globe of the world. Okay, um, for example, whereas, okay, this is I make a comparison. Um, for example, let's say let's talk about compare stores. Um, Metro and Totus are are big, whereas Tambo is small. Okay, so I'm comparing size. Okay, um, and I can equally is, for example, when they're equal. Okay, or in the same way. So all of these expressions talk about comparing things. Okay, this I mean here I mentioned identify similarities, but it can also be differences. But we are comparing. Remember, the main idea is that we can compare. Contrast here we have these are literally for differences. Okay, specifically differences. But however, yet, still, even though, nevertheless, on the other hand, otherwise, after all, for all that, on the contrary, notwithstanding, in contrast, unlike, whereas, instead of, alternatively, although. Okay, notice how whereas appears in both, but appears in both, because again, we are comparing, but one, it's we're comparing differences, and the other we're comparing similarities. Okay, in these cases, we are definitely contrasting. Okay, we are definitely going to talk about opposing ideas. Okay, for example, I am very tired. Nevertheless, I will have to continue working. Or I love watching science fiction movies. On the contrary, my father hates them. Okay. Um, my older son is very fond in playing video games. In contrast, my daughter, she loves playing outdoors. Okay, so we use these sentences to express that the following idea is going to be contrary, or is going to be opposite, or is going to be different. Okay, for example, Raj did not perform well in the exam. Nevertheless, he got a distinction in English. Okay, notice he didn't perform well. Nevertheless, he got a distinction in English. Okay, so we're just saying that even though he did not get a good grade, he still got distinction in English. So again, here are some examples, some templates, like I said, for cause and effect, for comparison, and for contrast. Okay, I will never use however for cause and effect, for example. It's impossible. There is no way that we can use the expression however to say why something happens. In the same way, like we are never going to use nevertheless for cause and effect. Okay, this is where the point of being logical comes into play. Okay, all of these words connect ideas, but they connect it in a different way. Be very careful which one you choose and when to choose them. Okay, for example, just like I said, um, let's see, yet. Okay, yet has a specific moment, right? It's like saying especially, or for example, let's see, the runner had the football player um, um, sprained his ankle, yet he continued running. Okay, um, it's but I use but. It's different, right? Like I said, my neighborhood is beautiful, but it's dangerous. Okay. Notice how I will never be able to say use yet and but in the same way in this case. Um, but you need to know when to use each one. Okay, they are similar. They are very similar, but each case has a specific moment. I think I'm going to give you some more examples here. Now, here when we talk about time, okay, when we talk about time chronology, at once, immediately, meanwhile, at length, in the meantime, at the same time, in the end, when then, as, before that, and after that. And like I said, these linkers indicate time and the frequency that the events happen. The bell rang and the students left immediately. Okay, so now these linkers tell me exactly what is the connection between the bell rang and the students left. That they left immediately. Okay, that as soon as the bell rang, they left. Okay, so this is how these two actions connect. Okay. Again, these are used to indicate time and the frequency of the events. Okay, now for addition, when we want to add more things, we have also, we have and, even, again, moreover, further, furthermore, similarly, in addition, as well as. All of these expressions add idea in support of the main idea. Okay, all of these give support, give fundament, give arguments to my main idea. For example, it is very hot today. Moreover, there is a power outage. Okay, so I'm just giving you more. I'm giving you more information about today, which is the main idea. Okay, and these are for addition. All of these express supporting ideas of the main idea. To talk about examples. Okay, now normally we say for example, but there are other ways, there are other forms of saying for example, such as, for instance, in this case, in another case, on this occasion, in this situation, in this manner, and to illustrate. Notice how normally we are all accustomed to always say for example, this, for example, that. But we can also say in this case or in this situation or to illustrate. These expressions introduce illustrations in support of the main idea. All of these give examples of the main idea. I think he is very rich. For example, he gave 100 rupee note to a beggar. Rupees are the currency of India. Okay, a rupee note is like a 100 rupee note is like a bill, $100 bill, for example, will be the equivalent. Okay, paper money. So all of these words express examples. Okay, now sequence. We have first, second, third, but then we also have next, then, following, now, at this point, after this, subsequently, eventually, finally, previously. All of these express sequence. Like I said, if you say first, I know there's going to be a second. Okay, if you're not going to give second and third or more, then you should never say first. Okay, so it also needs to have some kind of logic. Okay, these show the importance of the ideas by listing according to the priority. So we are giving priority this first, this second, this third. Okay, for example, when you talk about processes, right? First, you verify that everything is plugged in. Then you turn on the machine. It's impossible for you to turn on the machine and then verify if everything is plugged in. So there's a logical sequence in these things. That's why we use these expressions. For example, there is a student's procession today, therefore they diverted the traffic. Okay, so now here we're using therefore to um, um, express the sequence. Okay, so first they're going to divert the traffic and then we're going to have the procession. Okay, it's impossible for it to happen in the other way. To summarize, in brief, on the whole, in sum, to sum up, and thus. We use these expressions to draw conclusion and to summarize our ideas. It is a love story. The actors perform well, the direction is excellent, the settings are beautiful. In brief, it is a good film. Okay, so with these expressions, we summarize the whole idea. We connect everything into one sentence. We finalize our comments, our review, um, our our discussion or our presentation. Okay, with these expressions, we close the circle when we want to finish what we want to say. Okay, now, like I said, today's class is basically going to give you um, examples of expressions and templates. To give examples, for instance, namely. The most common way to give examples is by using, for example, a for instance. Namely refers to something by name. There are two problems, namely the expense and the time, okay? So now when we say namely, we're going to give the example, but we're going to be specific of what we want to say. Okay, we're going to be specific of what we want to say. But the most common, of course, are for example and for instance. Okay, so remember, namely is also used when we specifically say the name. There are two problems, namely the expense and the time. Instead of saying, I can say, for example, the expense and the time, but if I say namely, I'm being very specific. To add information, okay, now we have all of these, and in addition as well, also to, furthermore, moreover, apart from, in addition to, besides. The ideas are often linked by and. In a list, you put a comma between each item, but not before and. Okay? We discussed training, education, and the budget. Okay, so we're just saying, we're giving a list of everything we did. Also is used to add an extra idea or emphasis. We also spoke about marketing. Notice, we also spoke about marketing. So now we're giving an extra idea, but we're also putting some emphasis in it. We can also, you can use also with not only to give more emphasis. We are concerned not only by the costs, but also by the competition. Okay, so now we're combining two linkers to put emphasis on what we want to say. We are concerned not only by the costs, but also by the competition, as well as can be used at the beginning or in the middle of a sentence. As well as the costs, we are concerned by the competition. We are interested in the costs as well as the competition. Okay, so notice how the expression as well, which is an expression to add information, can be used at the beginning or in the middle of the sentence. Okay, and notice how we use it basically to put emphasis on the extra information. Okay, so notice how we are not only adding information, but we're also putting emphasis on it. Okay, so here we have some templates again to give examples. For example, for instance, namely, then we also have for addition and in addition, as well as also to, furthermore, moreover, apart from, in addition to, and besides. Okay. To goes either at the end of the sentence or after the subject and means as well. They were concerned too. I too was concerned. Okay, so this is the position, the two possible positions for the expression to. Normally it is at the end, but again, it can also go after the subject. Okay, I too was concerned. Apart from and besides are often used to mean as well as or in addition to. Apart from Rover, we are the largest sports car manufacturer. So it's like saying, us too. Besides Rover, we are the largest sports car manufacturer. Again, us too. Okay, so we use apart from and besides the same as we would use in to or in addition to or as well as. Okay, so notice how we are saying, because I could say we are the largest sports car manufacturer too, but now we want to say apart from who. Okay, apart from these guys, we do it too. Okay, So this is another way of adding information. Moreover, and furthermore, add extra information to the point you're making. Marketing plans give us an idea of the potential market. Moreover, they tell us about the competition. Okay, so this is they tell us about the competition too, right? Okay, so it's just like adding information. Um, but we it sounds more formal, and it's more and again, normally it goes before, in at the beginning of the sentence, and it's followed by a comma. Okay, but that is more into when you that is that is more important when you write, but because when you speak you don't mention the commas, but it tells you to pause, right? Moreover, they tell us about the competition. Okay, when we know in our mind that there's a comma, then it tells us that we need to pause, like in the examples above. Because if I say, besides Rover, we are the largest sports car manufacturer, it's better to say, besides Rover, we are the largest sports car manufacturer. Apart from Rover, we are the largest sports car manufacturer. Okay, so normally commas, even though we don't, I mean, when we speak, we're not going to, I mean, if I tell you that you need to write the comma, it's because it's written in English, but when you speak and you know that there's a comma in this position, that tells you you need to make a slight pause. To summarize, when we summarize, we use these expressions: in short, in brief, in summary, to summarize, in a nutshell, to conclude, and in conclusion. We normally use these words at the beginning of the sentence to give a summary of what we have said or written. Okay, normally these all go at the beginning of my conclusion, at the beginning of my summary. In short, this presentation it will be about, or has been about, um, linkers. Okay, in a nutshell, these words will help you organize your ideas better. Okay, so all of these expressions are used at the beginning of my conclusion, at the beginning of my finalizing topics, of my final or my final words. Okay, sequencing ideas. Okay, so here we have the former and the latter. Okay, notice that if I eliminate one T, it's later, but the latter, two T's is latter. Okay, the former and the latter. Okay, then we have firstly, secondly, finally. The first point is lastly, and the following. The former and the latter are used when you want to refer to one of 2 points. Marketing and finance are both covered in this course. The former is studied in the first term, and the latter is studied in the final term. Now, which is the former? Marketing. Which is the latter? Finance. Okay, so this is when we want to say, instead of saying the first or the second topic, we use the former and the latter. Okay, again, marketing and finance are both covered in this course. The former, marketing, is studied in the first term. The latter, finance, is studied in the final term. Okay, so we don't have to repeat. You know that when you speak or when you write, it's better to avoid repetition, right? Then we have firstly, secondly, finally, or lastly are useful ways to list ideas. It's rare to use fourthly or fifthly. Instead, try the first point, the second point, the third point, and so on. Okay. So, like I said, you can say firstly, secondly, but normally you don't say thirdly, fourthly, fifthly. So, if you want to mention more than 2 or 3 points, then you can say the first point, the second point, the third point, and you can continue going. I mean, of course, you're not going to say the 100th point, okay, because nobody gets that far. But this is what happens, okay? So it's better to say the first point, the second point, when you're going to mention more than 2, okay? And of course, when we're going to finish, we say finally, or we say lastly, when we want to state that this is the last point of whatever we're saying. To give reasons, when we give reasons, we use expressions like due to the fact that, owing to the fact that. They are similar, they are exactly the same. Because of, since, and as. Due to and owing to must be followed by a noun. Okay? Due to and owing to must be followed, must, obligation, it's not an option. Due to the rise in oil prices, the inflation rate rose 1.25%. Owing to the demand We are unable to supply all items within 2 weeks. Okay, we need a noun. We need a noun. If you want to follow these words with a clause, that means a sentence. Okay, if you want to follow by a clause has a subject, a verb, and an object. Okay, like I normally tell my students, subject, verb, complement, right? This is the sentence. If you want to follow these expressions by a sentence, then you use the fact that. Due to the fact that oil prices have risen, the inflation rate has gone up by 1.25%. Okay, so now we have due to the fact that oil prices, noun, have risen. This is a noun, verb, and object. Okay, owing to the fact that the workers have gone on strike, the workers subject have gone is the verb, on strike is the complement. Okay, so owing to the fact that the workers have gone on strike, the company has been unable to fulfill all its orders. So again, if we use due to and owing to, we're going to use due to and owing to, followed by a noun. Due to oil prices, due to the demand. But if we're going to have give a sentence, then we use due to the fact that. Due to the fact that oil prices have risen, owing to the fact that workers have gone on strike. Okay, so now these are the differences, but the meaning again is the same, or the only difference will be the grammar. Because and because of. Okay, again, because of is always followed by a noun. Because of bad weather noun, the football match was postponed. Because can be used at the beginning or in the middle of a sentence. For example, because it was raining, the match was postponed. We believe in incentive schemes because we want our employees to be more productive. Okay, so notice that the difference between because of and because is that after because, we have the reason. I study English because I want to travel. I do exercise because I want to be fit. I eat healthy because I want to lose weight. Okay, but after because of, we say something specific. Because of my weight, I am doing exercise. Okay, so you after because of you collocate a noun. Then we have since and as. Since and as being because, like I said, well, these are all these words express reasons. Since the company is expanding, we need to hire more staff. Since the company is expanding, we need to hire more staff. This is the same as saying we need to hire more staff because the company is expanding. As the company is expanding, we need to hire more staff. The same. We need to hire more staff because the company is expanding. So these two words also mean because. Now you can say, teacher, but I will just write because. Yes, you could write because, but imagine you have a writing or you're giving a speech and you're saying, because of this, because of this, because then you'll sound too repetitive. So you have now you have other words, since or as to say the same thing. Okay, so it's always good to vary your speech, to vary your writing. To give results, we have therefore, so, consequently, this means that, as a result. Okay, now therefore, so, consequently, and as a result are all used in a similar way. Notice, therefore, so, consequently, and as a result are all used in a similar way. For example, the company are expanding. Therefore, they are taking on extra staff. So they are taking on extra staff. Consequently, they are taking on extra staff. As a result, they are taking on extra staff. So now this is the result. Okay, this is the result. The company are expanding, and this is the result. So it's more informal. Okay, but they all mean the same. Okay, notice how they all mean the same. We're giving a result. Okay, so you decide which one. Again, you can change your words, you can change your ideas to make your discourse, your speech, or your writing, or your email more understandable and better. You know, because it's always better to avoid repetition. To contrast ideas, but however, although, even though separated, because I normally see people wearing it together, despite the fact that, in spite of the fact that, Nevertheless, nonetheless, while, whereas, unlike in theory and in practice. But is more informal than however. It is normally not used at the beginning of a sentence. Okay, but he works hard, but he doesn't earn much. He works hard, point, however, comma, he doesn't earn much. Okay, so even though but and however have the same meaning, but is followed is in the middle of a sentence after a comma, whereas however normally goes at the beginning of the opposing ideas and is followed by a comma. Okay, it's not in the center. It's not in between two sentences. Notice how there's a point there to separate. Although, despite and this in despite of introduce an idea of contrast. With these words, you must have two halves. Although it was cold, she went out in shorts. In spite of the cold, she went out in shorts. Okay. Um, Always after despite or in spite of, like I was going to say, they are used in the same way as due to and owing to. They must be followed by a noun. If you're going to say despite or in spite of, you say something, right? In spite of the cold or despite the cold. If you want to follow them by a noun and a verb, you must use in fact the fact that. Despite the fact that the company was doing badly, they took on extra employees. Okay, so remember, despite and in spite of have the same rule as due to and owing to. You follow them by a noun. But if you want to follow them by an idea, you need to say despite the fact that or in spite of the fact that. Okay. Despite the fact that the company was doing badly, they took on extra employees. Nevertheless and nonetheless mean in spite of that or anyway. Okay. The sea was cold, but he went swimming nevertheless. So in spite of the fact that it was cold, he didn't care. The company is doing well. Nonetheless, they aren't going to expand in a year. So even though they're doing well, they're not going to expand. Okay. So nevertheless or nonetheless have the same meaning of in spite of that or anyway, even though. Very good. And notice how they are written, how they are used. Nevertheless, does not need to be part of a new sentence, whereas nonetheless normally does. Okay, and it's followed by a comma. While whereas and unlike are used to show how two things are different from each other. Okay, while whereas and unlike are used to show how two things are different from each other. State difference. While my sister has blue eyes, mine are brown. Taxes have gone up, whereas Social Security have gone down. Unlike the UK, the USA has cheap petrol. Okay, so we use while, whereas, and unlike to show how things are different. And of course, they go before the opposing idea. In theory and in practice, show an unexpected result. In theory, teachers should prepare for lessons, but in practice, they often don't have enough time. Okay, so we use the expressions in theory and in practice to show how this is what normally should happen, but this is what really happens. Okay, so in theory, teachers should prepare for lessons, but in practice, they often do not have enough time. Okay, so again, we are contrasting ideas. Now, to sum up and to finish, here are some expressions. For one thing, it's too expensive, and for another, the design is quite old-fashioned. As far as the press conference is concerned, we need to reassure everyone that the situation is under control. Yes, all our jobs are going to be at risk if the merger goes through. Incidentally, did you manage to get any tickets for the game on Saturday? In general, her decisions about marketing strategy are very good. Although on this occasion, I think she has overlooked the importance of the internet. Of course, Syria has a lot of experience in this field, but even so, I think the project is too big for just one person. Now, what I want, well, this is not, we're going to do it together. Here we have which of these words can we replace? Okay, for example, by the way, as regards, admittedly, but nevertheless, on the whole, but in the first place, and then on top of that. Okay, so by the way. By the way, can we replace which one? Okay. If you said, Letter C, yes. So, yes, all our jobs are going to be at risk if the merger goes through. By the way, did you manage to get any tickets for the game on Saturday? Okay, so incidentally and by the way are have a similar use and a similar meaning. As regards, where would you replace as regards? Okay, if you said letter B, you were correct. As far as the press conference is concerned, we need to reassure everyone that the situation is under control. As regards as the press conference is concerned, we need to reassure everyone that the situation is under control. What about number three? Admittedly, but nevertheless. If you said letter E, then you were correct. Of course, Sylvia has a lot of experience in this field, but even so, I think the project is too big for just one person. Admittedly, Sylvia has a lot of experience in this field, but nevertheless, I think the project is too big for just one person. Okay, so notice we're saying the same thing using different words. Number four, on the whole and but. We have letter A and we have letter D. Yes, very good. So, in general, her decisions about marketing strategy are very good. Although on this occasion, I think she has overlooked the importance of the internet. Or, on the whole, her decisions about marketing strategy are very good. But on this occasion, I think she has overlooked the importance of the internet. And of course, finally, we have number five. Um, for one thing, it's too expensive, and for another, the design is quite old fashioned. In the first place, it's too expensive. And then on top of that, the design is quite old fashioned. Okay? So this was just an example of how there are many ways of saying the same thing to avoid repetition, to make our sentences clearer, more organized. Okay? Because if you tell me on the whole, okay, that means that I'm summarizing or I'm talking about a general idea. Okay? If I say admittedly, okay, I'm saying, yeah, sure. I mean, of course. Okay, so without me saying the words, yeah, sure. These expressions are used to they're used to help the writer or the other speaker to organize his or her ideas, and they are also used for the listener or the reader to be able to understand better and to be prepared of what the following information is. Okay, very good. So if there are no more questions, the next topic for Monday is going to be linking words 3. Again, I'm going to give you some more words, some more templates that you can use to improve your speaking skills and to improve your writing skills whenever you write an email, a report, or you contact in a written way with somebody. Remember that um, these there are three things that you need to take into account when we talk about this topic. The first one is that it helps you organize your ideas better. Okay, if you use linkers, then you don't need to say, you don't need to write, you can connect many ideas in one sentence or in one paragraph. So it helps you organize. Second, like I said, this is the first one is related to you. Second, it is for the person who is receiving the message. If you, it's better to understand if you, for example, if you say first, second, or finally, or to sum up, then you are letting me, I am receiving the message in a more organized way. And finally, it makes your presentations better. It makes them more professional. It helps you to avoid repetition. So all of these things just improve your presentation as a whole. Your presentation is much better. The way you transmit your ideas are much better, and the way they are received, of course, are much better. Okay, so with this we close this topic, and again, thank you again for attending the lectures that Comics presents. Stay tuned for the next lecture, and remember that we have lectures every week, every day. Just look for the schedule that is collocated in Facebook every day. Okay. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Here is my contact information in case you would like to ask me any further questions. This is my email, cjmflores@gmail.com. My telephone, in case you want to contact me through WhatsApp, 947-390-436. And my LinkedIn account, if you want to comment or you want to follow me, is at CJMFLORES27. Okay. I hope you have a great weekend. Stay safe and God bless. Bye bye.